So that's one of the issues that we're looking at. The two issues that have been raised by fire and law enforcement are clearly security, ingress, egress, circulation. Clearly, schools have concerns about how close they are to schools, just like you would with any of the other things that Jim has identified. We do have information. It's wide-ranging. Our land use is not the same as any other county, so picking and choosing or copying from someone else is not as easy. We're actually going to have to weigh through this, and that's what staff's been working on. So you have the ability to give us a shorter period of time, and if we're not ready, we'll come back and ask for an extension, or you could grant us the full extension.
John, if I could. I don't know why we're treating this any differently than we would giving a permit to a pharmacy. You wouldn't give a permit to a pharmacy out in an ag district. It also seems to me that, and I don't know where this is going, that part of this, I know in Oakland there's the sales tax thing, and I hope we're looking at that, because that was mutually acceptable to not only the proprietors or the, I guess they're CEOs of these nonprofits, as well as law enforcement and the communities that they operate in.
And I would ask if we have this brought back, the option of outlawing any retail establishment that is selling something that violates state or federal law. Be one of the options is brought forward when, and if we have to deal with this.
Yeah, one reason why we're asking for the moratorium is there's quite a bit of litigation on this right now, and there's a case in the Court of Appeals down south, and they held oral argument a couple weeks ago, and it looks like what they're going to come out with is this issue of whether local jurisdictions can impose a complete prohibition on these things. So hopefully in a couple months we'll have some further guidance from the Court of Appeals on those, and we'll certainly bring back to you a full range of options, so, based on what the law is when we come back.
I do have a number of, actually 4 cards on this item. Mr. Tipton, Mr. Gwynn, Mr. Stewart, and Mr. Cliff. Off.
Donald Tipton from unincorporated Vallejo. A couple of questions I'd like to have answered here is, can a doctor prescribe medical marijuana to a patient in Solano County? And can the patient get the medical marijuana and use it in Solano County if they get it somewhere else? As I was reading through this thing and remembering who we're dealing with over here in the planning department and stuff like that, I start to reflect back to that, you know, this has been going on well over 10 years, and the county has done nothing to prepare itself for this ordinance, apparently. So 2 more years, I believe that this county would do nothing but just to stall for that time, and when after the 2 years, I think they'll be asking for another stall. That's what I think is really going on here. Now is the time for this ordinance to start to work. I don't even believe, I'd like to see the hours that they've spent actually on the ordinance and the process of what they've actually been doing, and I'd like to see the information that they've gathered. I don't see that here either. What I see is a lot of comments. I think now is the time to do the right thing, and the right thing is to do it safely, and to do it where it's taxed. There's also a real point in time here that 2 supervisors have got the power today that they didn't have on other items. So the pressure is really on 2 supervisors to do what they think that needs to be done here. I just want to remind you of that. My comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tiffin. Mr. Gwynn.
Good morning once again. It's interesting, back in the 20s and 30s, they had something called prohibition. And while it's a nice goal for people not to do bad things to their body, it didn't work. And finally, government was faced with reality that they could have a lot less problems and things would go a lot more smoothly if they allowed liquor. That way, the quality was a little better controlled. And also, they found out they could make a lot of money off of it. And the government loves making money off of other people's misfortune. Also, look at what happened to Michael Jackson. He had plenty of money, and he was able to find a doctor that could give him all kinds of stuff he really shouldn't have had. Actually, it was a lot of doctors, apparently. Marijuana is really kind of mild stuff compared to the kind of stuff that Michael Jackson and other entertainers have been involved with. Personally, I don't drink, I don't smoke, and I don't find any thing good about using drugs. I've never used them. I find it interesting that you guys, at least some of you, are apparently really against doing something that's been ruled legal in California, and even the president, I understand, is pushing for non-enforcement by the federal government. We're talking about people that are sick and are basically asking for relief from pain. I don't see that it should be such a big issue. Probably in the majority as far as drinking is concerned, and that's not a problem. One of you even made a deal for being wet reckless. I find it really strange that that's okay, but then marijuana to keep somebody from having pain when it's even considered legal in the state is considered a big no-no. I think that's just logically inconsistent, and I would hope that you would do something sooner instead of later. I think it's really nice in a situation like this you have a fourth-fifth supermajority. It'd be nice if passing tax increases were like that, or even 100% would be even better, because you'd know then that you really had a tax that was a good situation. So I would hope that you don't go for 22 months and just vote this thing down and go ahead and do what you should do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gwynn. Mr. Stewart?
Yes, I'm new at this, but I guess I am an advocate. Yes. In actually, Proposition 215 was passed in 1996, and the California State Senate Bill 420 was passed in 2004, clarifying the scope of the act to facilitate the prompt identification, qualification, and promote uniform and consistent application of the act among the counties within the state, enhance the access of patients and caregivers to medical marijuana through collection, cooperatives, cultivation projects, etc. We are in non-compliance with state law. Federal law, we are protected under the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment, which our forefathers were wise enough to put in state, is the State Sovereignty Act, and it was authored by James Madison and Thomas Jefferson. I believe in what they had to say, in what they did, and what they wrote into our Constitution, and I support it 150%. I think anything other than moving forward with implementing medical marijuana cannabis as passionate caregivers for members of our community would be in violation of the will of the people of the state of California. With that, I thank you, and I hope I persuaded some of you to vote in acting this.
I actually have a question. What was Solano County's vote on 215?
And it passed in every district.
Thank you.
Barbara, would you be with 12-month?
I do have one other speaker, Mr. Clift.